What if I told you the greatest devotees of Hindu gods were not Devas but Asuras? They fasted longer, they meditated harder, they sacrificed more than humans ever could. Gods feared their power, history feared their ambition, and so they were remembered as demons. But today, we uncover the real truth of Asuras, a truth history never told. In Hindu mythology, we grow up hearing a simple story. Devas are good, Asuras are evil, light versus darkness, heaven versus hell. But ancient scriptures don't tell such a simple tale. They speak of Asuras who were scholars, kings, yogis, and devotees. They speak of gods who feared losing power. So the question is not who was evil. The real question is, who controlled the story? The word Asura did not originally mean demon. In early Vedic texts, Asura meant powerful lord, a title of authority, not evil. Both Devas and Asuras were born from the same lineage, Kashyapa Rishi, the father of many cosmic beings. Same blood, same origin, different philosophies. Asuras were not created to be villains. They became villains after they challenged divine control. This was never just a war of weapons or armies clashing on the battlefield. It was a war of belief systems, a conflict rooted in the very ideas that shaped civilizations. The Devas followed a divine hierarchy, believing that true power should be granted by the gods above, and that only those chosen by the heavens could lead. They saw themselves as protectors of the cosmic order, Dharma, ensuring that the universe remained in balance and harmony. In contrast, the Asuras believed power must be earned through merit and effort. They questioned authority, challenged tradition, and refused to accept blind obedience. Contrary to popular belief, the Asuras didn't seek to destroy the universe or bring chaos. Instead, they wanted to rule it on their own terms, to shape destiny with their own hands and ideals. But history has always been harsh on those who dare to question power, often punishing the rebels while glorifying the victors. Here's the truth most people never hear. When we think of Asuras, we often imagine them as villains, the eternal enemies of the gods, always causing chaos and destruction. But the reality is far more nuanced and fascinating. Asuras were among the greatest devotees in Hindu mythology. Their stories are filled with intense devotion, unwavering discipline, and a spiritual hunger that rivaled even the gods themselves. Let's talk about Ravana for a moment. He's often painted as the ultimate villain, but his story is much deeper. He was a Brahmin by birth, born into a lineage of scholars and priests, and was highly respected for his intellect. Ravana was a true master of the Vedas, possessing knowledge that few could match. He was a scholar, a poet, and a musician, and above all, he was a devoted follower of Lord Shiva. His devotion was so intense that he's said to have composed the Shiva Tandava Stotra, a hymn still revered today. He didn't just steal power, he actually earned it through tapasya so severe that it became legendary. Ravana's penance was so intense, he's said to have offered his own heads to Shiva, one after another, as a mark of his devotion and determination. The force of his tapasya was so great that even the gods trembled, fearing the power he might gain. Then there's Hiranyakashipu, a devoted follower of Brahma. He meditated for centuries, seeking immortality and the ultimate boon from the Creator God. His penance was so intense that it shook all three worlds, sending waves of energy through the cosmos and disturbing the balance of creation. It got to the point where even the gods, the Devas themselves, begged Brahma to stop him, fearing what would happen if his wishes were granted. And of course, Bali Maharaj, another Asura king whose story is celebrated to this day. He was known for his generosity and righteousness, ruling with fairness and compassion. His subjects loved him, and his reputation for charity spread far and wide. Bali became so powerful that even the Devas lost their kingdom to him, unable to match his strength and virtue. Vishnu himself took the form of Vamana, not to destroy Bali, but to test his ego and humility, a test that would become legendary. When Bali was asked to give 3 paces of land, he agreed without hesitation, even when it meant losing everything he had. And when Bali passed that test, showing true humility and devotion, he was honored by the gods and revered by his people. Vishnu granted him immortality and eternal honor, making Bali a symbol of selflessness and devotion for generations to come. So, does that really sound like evil? Or does it sound like the story of beings whose devotion, discipline, and sacrifice changed the course of mythology itself? Over centuries, mythology gradually transformed into a powerful tool for moral storytelling, shaping the way generations understood right and wrong. Stories that were once layered and nuanced became more direct, serving as guides for behavior and values. Complex characters, who once embodied both virtues and flaws, were simplified for easier understanding. The subtle shades of grey in their personalities faded, replaced by clear distinctions: heroes on one side, villains on the other. To teach children important lessons, stories needed clear heroes to admire and obvious villains to fear. These tales became essential tools for passing down values, traditions, and cultural identity. Asuras, once complex beings, were recast as symbols of ego, unchecked ambition, and insatiable desire, embodying the qualities society warned against. But if you look closely, ancient texts still whisper a different truth. Asuras performed yajnas, followed their own version of Dharma, and many simply fought to protect their kingdoms and people. The real history is far more nuanced than the stories suggest. Yet over time, history was edited, rewritten, and retold, sometimes losing its original complexity, but always leaving behind traces for those willing to look deeper. Here's something shocking. Vishnu never truly hated the Asuras. In fact, Vishnu granted moksha to many Asuras, he personally interacted with them, and he respected their devotion. Even enemies like Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, and Ravana were ultimately liberated by Vishnu himself. Why? Because Vishnu doesn't fight evil. He fights imbalance. Asuras represent something, well, deeply human: ego, ambition, desire for control, and hunger for power. They are not monsters. They are actually reflections of us. Hindu mythology isn't telling us, kill the Asura. It's telling us, control the Asura within. Because unchecked devotion becomes ego, unchecked power becomes destruction, and even gods fall when balance is lost. Asuras were not born evil. They were not demons by nature. They were powerful beings who dared to challenge destiny. And in a universe ruled by order, rebels are never remembered kindly. So, next time you hear the word Asura, ask yourself, was he truly evil, or just powerful enough to be feared?